Good evening and welcome to Views with Joyce Waddell. I want to thank you for joining us today. We're going to be talking about the shootings at UNCC. Usually you think of schools as being a safe place when no other place is safe. We think of schools as being a place where we go to learn, to advance, and to prepare for life. A life that we will experience after having left the halls of academia and matriculated so that we go into the world of work, the armed forces, or institutions of higher learning. And to think that you go to a school unexpectedly and a gunman is in your classroom. No one knows about it. The students don't know anything. There's no argument, no fight, but a gun. So evidently there is something going on with the gunman, something unusual. And so when I spoke to students at UNCC, my message to them on last Wednesday was, if you see something, say something. And that meaning, if you see unusual behavior among your peers, among your classmates, if you see sadness, if you see that someone is disturbed, say something, because it really means something. And you never know what it can mean. But to think about, to just think, 2 students dead and 4 students injured and in the hospital, at a place that supposedly is among the safest places that you could be. You're not in a club. You're not somewhere fighting at an entertainment place, but you're in a classroom. And so one of the interesting things I noticed as students held up their signs during our press conference, where they had us to speak and talk about some things that we might be able to do, what legislation we might be able to pass, so that this senseless act could be prevented, so that we don't have this happen again, so that we can always be on our guard. And so that's a move forward as we look at the General Assembly, as we look at those things that might be able to put in place that can be preventive. The university professor who was in the class at the time talked about some things, some interesting things, as he wrote about what happened that day. As he wrote about the unusual circumstances, the events that unfold in that anthropology classroom. Things that we'd never seen before, never heard of, never thought would ever happen. But it did happen. And it did happen in an unusual way. All of a sudden, someone starts shooting. How do you plan for something like that? How do you plan to circumvent those experiences, those events that are so painful and unexpected? Well, we really don't know. But we must find a way. We must find some answers, because it cannot continue to happen. And it's up to each and every one of us to be vigilant, to step forward, and let this community, this school, students, and those who are upset know this is not the way to handle anything that's going on with you and in your life. So the UNCC professor talked about event by event as it unfolds, how he was involved, what he told students to do, how he did his best to see that those remaining were safe. And in the end, he had them walk out their hands up, and they left the campus. This was the last day of school, the time that you rejoice, the time that you are full of laughter, full of fun, happy, because you've achieved your goal and it's over. And to know that that time is not the jubilant time that you expected, but a time of tragedy. 2 people dead, senselessly. 4 people injured and in the hospital. And so the chancellor of the university is calling for an extensive review of what happened, an extensive review of the events as we move forward to make certain that this does not happen again, and to look at what was it, what was behind it. And so that student has been charged with, he was a former student, 2 counts of murder. After Tuesday's shooting, his name was Tristan Andrew Terrell, 22 years old. Think about being 22 years old, and it's just like your life is over because something that you did cannot be undone, it cannot be erased. Tristan was 22 years old, a former student. Had never been in trouble, good behavior. So how do you second guess? How do you plan for something that a person's going to do if they've never been in trouble? If they're good students? You don't. Did he talk among other students? Did he say anything? And that's why I say if you see something, say something. Tell somebody. Tell somebody in authority. As he matriculated, as he was on campus that day, did anybody see anything that was unusual? Did anybody see any behavior that was out of the ordinary? And that's when you see something unusual, something out of the ordinary, you go to the persons of authority and you say something. And don't think that you're being overreacting, because you're not. You're being cautious and you're being in a moment of preventiveness. 22 years old, and his life is over. Not only is his life over, is he's living, there are 2 others who are dead. Did he intend to do this? We don't know. But the 4 that are alive attempted murder. There's another charge that he's charged with. And it was the last day of classes for UNCC. And we comment over and over on how brave the student was who tried to rush to him and take away the gun. He showed extraordinary braveness. We've heard so many times, you put yourself in harm's way. But he did. We're running toward the sounds of gunshots and administering first aid to the injured and dying. And so there was a military funeral for Howell, the guy that tried to stop the shooter. He didn't know it was going to be his last day on this earth. When he tried to stop that shooter, he saved the lives of others. And that's why it was important that he have a military funeral. A UNCC spokeswoman could not immediately provide details about the review, but the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department chief praised first responders. And on Wednesday, Putney called slain student Riley Howell a hero Wednesday, saying he attacked the shooter and knocked him down, and most likely he saved many lives. All of the injured students are expected to recover, according to the police and UNCC officials. Howell's funeral was Sunday at Lake Junaluska, a huge funeral. And it appears that people from all over the state, all over this country came. And let's think about Terrell. North Carolina law leaves bond decisions in the hands of judges. But if Terrell is indicted on murder charges before May 15th, his case will be transferred to Superior Court, and his court date would change, says the district attorney spokeswoman. In addition to the two murder charges for the deaths of Howell, 21, and Ellis Parlier, 19, Terrell counts of attempted murder, 4 counts of assault with a deadly weapon inflicting injuries, is charging a firearm on educational property and possessing a gun on educational property, according to jail records. The rest of the students in the class and lecturer, Adam Johnson, managed to escape, joining dozens of other people on campus who hid or barricaded themselves in spaces. They had to hide. They didn't know what to do. They were afraid. And so that's what they found. So let's see what the grandfather, Traston, was living with, came to live with his grandfather. And his grandfather gave an account of him. Said it was quiet. Not only was he quiet, his grandfather also said he was artistic. So that meant that he had some kind of learning disability. But he never expected anything like this to come out of him. Nothing like this at all. The grandfather also said that he did small jobs. He was a model individual. He was proud of his grandson. He never thought his grandson would do such a thing. So you just don't know what's in a person's mind, in their hearts, in their thinking. But evidently, the people around him didn't know it either. There was something there that he knew. Artists, we are talking about the shooting at UNCC on the campus. It's such a sad time that should have been a joyful time leading to graduation. And we're going to pause for a moment to take you to some sights and sounds as we continue to talk about and look at the profile of the shooter and some of his background information as we talk about his life.
Let your glory fill this room.
We do know that Tristan Terrell's grandfather, was very concerned. We do know that he grew up in Texas, and his grandfather said he studied languages, French and Portuguese, and did very well with them, and was expected to get a job in South America somewhere. But he could not believe in a million years that his grandson would even shoot someone. He didn't even know that he had a gun or even knew how to shoot a gun. And when he came to Charlotte, we do know that he went to Central Piedmont and studied science there. That he was a good student there, that he studied for an associate degree at Central Piedmont before coming to UNCC to study. We do know that when he came to UNCC in classes, it was said that he was quiet in his science class. Many of his classmates said that it was not even on social media, that he was, in addition to being quiet, he seldom spoke or answered anything in class. But they did notice one thing. Sometimes he would get agitated and oddly enough would blurt out something as if in anger. Some comments or some statements, they did notice that. So that tells you one thing, but because he was mostly quiet, they thought nothing and thought nothing of it. They did also notice that in other classes he would speak, but not speak very much. And as they looked at background checks, he had never been in trouble. As they looked at the gun that he had, what they said, the report was, it was not an illegal, he didn't steal it from somewhere. He didn't buy it off the black market somewhere. So they said that, it was legal for him to have it. So that's one of the things that we will have to look at when we look at this profile, look at the things that happened. We do know also from reports that here in Charlotte, he came to live with his father, and that his father works in Charlotte as an auditor. And that there was still no unusual behavior. He was still a good student, a good person, good citizen, but something happened. So they started looking at this autism. His father knew that he was artistic. And some of the behavior from the Artistic Society says, oftentimes students who are artistic have language problems. They don't communicate like they normally would, like normal children. A lot of times they will have delayed motor skills. And his father was thought to have been seeking some help for him. But the grandfather said he didn't think that he was mentally ill, but at the same time, he had no evidence that any psychological test had been done. But there was just something that was unusual that happened because people just don't start shooting and start killing others. The students gathered together and they prayed. They prayed for each other and they prayed for strength. One of his classmates told the reporter that Tara rarely spoke in science, but his UNCC lecturer, Adam Johnson, taught the class, said Tara had seemed engaged and answered questions. Tara hasn't been allowed to speak with his son, the father, hasn't been able to speak with his son since his arrest, but he's expected to do so very soon. But he, at the same time, would never have believed that this could have happened, that he could have done something like this. Tara has no criminal record in North Carolina, not even in Texas. So he was kind of reserved and to himself. Johnson, the UNC Charlotte lecturer, described the chaos in the classroom Before opening fire, the shooter said nothing. He did not indicate that he was going to shoot. He simply just raised the gun and started to fire. Johnson also wrote, this is the professor wrote, that students told him the shooter apparently stopped shooting on his own accord after emptying and laying down the gun. "I'm done," they quoted him as saying. But Terrell's former classmates, Ellis Parlier and Riley Howell, died in the attack. Howell was 21, had been hailed as a hero for tackling the shooter before he was fatally shot. And he blames the gun laws for making weapons too easy to obtain. If he had not been able to secure a weapon, this would have never happened. I don't know. We are hoping that it would have never happened had he not been able to obtain a weapon. And so we're still grieving at the loss, because even one life is too many for us to lose. Even one life is a precious life and a senseless act of violence. It's not something that we want to see on a college campus. So we're going to look now at the future and what we can expect as we continue to mourn the loss, because we know that some of the students' families want things to happen in the future. And they're talking about those things that they'd like to see happen. And we're going to be talking more about those. So, audience, I want to thank you for being with us on Views with Joyce Waddell as we talk about the shootings on college campuses and the shooting here at UNCC that we thought would never happen in a safe place to learn, to get education, and to move forward in life. Thank you for being with us, and tune in again next week for another interesting program.